I'm just gonna say this. I've been thinking, I haven't been able to make to the class much for a while. And I wonder, life happens and things come up, and work, school, and everything. I wonder if it's the intensity changed, or is that I realize my capacity, acceptance, or is it because I get too comfortable, too privileged, or is there a certain maturity that is?
So you haven't been coming to class and you're wondering, is it because of your own maturity and understanding? Is it because life has become very busy for you? Is it because you lack intensity? Is it because you don't have the capacity? I tried to call Amir, but it's not connecting. There could be many reasons getting it may be because you've become more mature and consequently more insightful about things, and you understand things better, and therefore there is really no need to come to class. At least you don't feel the need to come to class. And maybe in a few weeks you'll come to realize it may not even be necessary to come to the house. No one knows really how these things go. It could also be that as life gets busy, you lose the intensity, you lose the momentum. You need to kind of consider and in some ways respect where you are in life. You're getting older. You're saving more money. You're looking forward to buying a house. You have a companion. And you're invested in all of them. And it is tiring. You work from 9 till 5. And I'm not quite sure what it is that you do. Maybe you just punch in numbers. And you keep looking at the screen, the monitor at your work. And your job is unrelated to perhaps your heart's desire. And it does impact the way you think and feel about things. And I don't know where you are in life in regards to family, but maybe you are thinking about having a family. aside from your job, there is a good amount of your brain space that's kind of spent on trying to figure out if this is the right relationship, if, your companion can be a potential life partner. And you're also a bit more, of course, you're also teaching as well, So you're kind of playing with ideas, you're reading books, you're going to the classroom, whether in person or via Zoom, and you're talking about these things, and so. I remember many, many years ago, beginning when Hussein was looking at us and he said, so there is Amir, he's not going to amount to much. There is Mehrdad, he's definitely not going to amount to much because he has like 3 kids. And there is Hussein, he has his own issues. And then he looks at his wife and he says, maybe my capacity, speaking of himself, is that I could only be around 3 losers. All I know, Ginning, is that when there is pain, it doesn't matter what lives in your life. Most of it goes away because the pain pushes them out. And I can't say you are the way you are because you lack pain, or the pain inside you is not as intense. That's not for me to say. But I think you are in a place in life where you have to kind of consider your physical life very seriously. You're no longer 20 where you can entertain, kind of just having fun for the next 10 years, and then when you're 30, then you can take life seriously. These are your most important years, your physical body and childbearing, and right now you have the capacity to perhaps have a lot of stamina, good stamina, for having a family life, for choosing a right, perhaps, companion for your life. And I don't want to get into, the footnotes as to whether or not relationships are worth having, children are worth having. Men's position in regards to these things are very different than women's. I think you have, as a woman, a very defining role that's given to you just by nature, by the fact that you are a woman. And that can kind of occupy you, childbearing and child rearing and all that, for the next 20, 30, 40 years. And I'm sure you'll be very good at it. And there is no reason for you to feel guilty for not coming to class, or not going to a workshop, or not coming to the house, or not reading or thinking about these things as often. And in some ways it's not a bad thing. One could even go as far as to say, maybe the classes are no longer that interesting for you. Their time has come to pass. Maybe my own ideas are no longer as interesting for you as it used to be, which kind of fits kind of all the other things that fall under the sun. There is the attraction initially, and then It's exciting, it's interesting, and once you become familiar, then it's not going to be as intense, it's not going to be as exciting. And then gradually you kind of just feel satisfied instead of coming to class or to the house every day. Once a week is fine. And there'll come a point where you'll come to the house, but you'll begin to think about other things, and you begin to feel about the things that you're thinking about, which are not anything we're talking about. And then I may send you a text next week saying we're having a gathering, and then instead of being certain that you do want to come, without any notice or warning, you kind of just say, do I really want to go tonight? I'm feeling a little tired. I just want to go home and take a shower and just rest and watch a good movie. Or maybe I want to spend some time with my companion. Maybe I'm just not interested. No one knows when those moments will come upon us. But, it may be that you don't have the capacity for more. It may be that there is no more depth inside me that can create the sort of desire intensity that's needed. I mean, this can go anyway. When I was, it's a saying that we have in Iran, and I'm sure that every culture has a saying like this in their own way, that everything has a season. T.S. Eliot, borrowing from, I think it's the Old Testament, Ecclesiastes, something like that. There's a time to be born, and there's a time to live, and there's a time to die. That, from 18 to about 24, 25, maybe 26, it's the years for your education. You should really be like a horse, just look at life in a very pointed sort of a way. You put yourself to college, then a 4-year school, and by the time you're 26 or so, you have your master's or PhD. That's a great savings, and you can use that for the rest of your life. And you have enough capacity, and your body has the energy to kind of sit in these boring classes, and take notes and then memorize. You're not as distracted. You hit 27, 28, you want to move out, you want to have your own life. So you have to work 40, 50 hours a week. You want to spend time with your friends. And should you want to go to school at the age of 27, something you should have done at the age of 18, it's not that you can't do it. It's going to be difficult now, and instead of taking 12 or 16 or 20 units a semester, you'll probably just take one class. And because your life is busy at the age of 27, 28, you'll be okay with earning a C in the class. That wouldn't be the case at the age of 18 because you want to go to the biggest and the best schools. And one could even argue that the reason why perhaps your interest has waned a little is part of your biological evolution, in the sense that, in a very subtle, invisible way, your body is telling you, beginning, there is a season to everything. The season for your life right now is not to go sit in the classroom, is not to play with these ideas. Just be happy and satisfied with the fact that you are teaching a few classes. You can play with these ideas. And sometimes you're serious, sometimes you're intense, sometimes you're casual and callous about them. Indifferent, but you're making a living, it pays for apartment for your house. Sometimes you go out and pay for the dinner. And something inside you says, what's most important is the season in which you live. which is you're 30, you have, a few years to look for a companion, to settle down. You know, it could be a lot of different reasons. Um, and I don't think the stories that you read in some of these books, a lot of people kind of take the story of Abraham and God's commandment that he should sacrifice his son Isaac or Ishmael. You have someone who is 20 or 30 or 40 says, well, I am a seeker after truth. I want to understand. I want to figure out what the mysteries of the self is or life is. And I should sacrifice. I should sleep less. I should eat less. I should have less friends. I should have more emotional and spiritual pain. I should always be reflective, about this and that. I should never be casual. And so the assumption is that they should follow in the footsteps of Abraham. As Abraham was in love with his son Isaac, and God said to him that if you want to get to me, you have to sacrifice the thing you're most attached to, and that's your son. And so, someone in the 21st century kind of looks at their life and is busy, and they also enjoy, playing with these ideas and thinking and reflecting and feeling about them. And so they come to realize that perhaps they're not sacrificing enough. They feel stagnant. They feel as if they've been, held hostage by sloth or laziness. And so they begin to make sacrifices. But, first, Abraham lived many, many thousands of years ago. Second, he was a man, supposedly aged 90. He really has nothing to lose. He has no life. And I think it's wrong for you to equate yourself. Say, my life is going to be like Abraham. As he made sacrifices, I too will make sacrifices because I want to understand what my life is all about. I don't think anyone should do that. And I think as a woman, if, for example, you are concerned about whether or not, you will have a relationship, whether you will be a mother and all that, I think there is a great amount of sacrifices that you'll make as a mother. It just goes with the territory. You don't need to wake up in the morning and pray. Your infant will cry so much where you want to sleep but you can't, and you will sacrifice your rest for your child. You may want to have a full-time position teaching or working at the hospital, but you realize that biologically, you just want to stay home and be with your child, and you're more than willing than instead of getting paid 5, 6, 7,000 a month, you'll be satisfied with just making 1,500. These are just sacrifices that people make. And I'm not in a position to make you feel bad. It's not my place to make you feel bad for the path that you're on or you want to take. I'm not going to devalue your life by saying that your work is bad, having children is bad, being in a relationship is bad. I think the Zen saying is very true and accurate and honest, that when you're tired, you just sleep. When you're hungry, you eat. When you're thirsty, you drink. And I think it's the same thing. You come to a place in life where you realize your body needs to lay next to another. And it's no good for you to kind of, second guess what your biology is telling you. you know. I mean, if you have a decent companion, I mean, that's your life. There is nothing wrong with it. It's a healthy life. And it doesn't mean that, you know, you're not going to suffer from hiccups. Once in a while, you are going to look at your man or your woman and say, why did I choose this path? You know, I think was it Seneca? I think he said that, you know, you get married, you'll be sorry. You don't get married, you'll be sorry. You know, you have children, you'll be sorry. You don't have children, you'll be sorry. And I think it doesn't really matter which way in life you go. You're always going to catch yourself having made a mistake, that you should have taken another path. You know, I had a colleague when my office was by the estuary. She was a very nice woman. She was in her, I think, late 50s, perhaps early 60s. She was an artist. She had on a couple of occasions, she had the opportunity to get married and have children. But she chose her art over a family life. And so once in a while we would sit by the water and we would talk, and she would say, yeah, sometimes, you know, I really feel bad for having made the choice of following my passion, you know, for art. I should have really settled down. I miss having kids. It would have been nice to have a daughter or a son. You know, or the flip side could be true, that you say to yourself, right now it's the season to mate and to have children, you know. And then a couple months or years pass by and you say, you know, I probably should have stayed single. I probably should have never got married or had children, because it's perhaps a life not worth much. I think if you want to look at this in a very positive light, you should think of it as you have gained enough maturity, understanding, and insight where you don't need the classroom, you don't need to read as many books, and possibly you don't need to come to the house as often. You can kind of just fuel yourself and nourish, you know, yourself, and think your own thoughts and feel your own emotions. You don't need anyone to generate those things for you. You know, if I was to kind of be a bit more creative with the prodigal son story, you know, the father doesn't hold his son hostage. He doesn't say, let me tell you how I made this money, what sacrifices I made to save all this money that you're now taking away from me. He loved his son. He also understood what it means to be young. And he did something that I think it's very difficult for most of us to do, which is let people do what they want to do. You know, if you really love your father, you'll eventually go back to him. If you really love your mom, you can walk away from her. You can go to a different continent. And there'll come a point where you'll just kind of go back home and you'll stay with your mom. You know, if you really, really, really love these ideas, if you love the reflective life, you know, you could get married, you could have 5 kids, and come to realize that eventually you're going to go to the thing that you love the most, which is you want to live your life in books, you want to live your life through ideas, you want to live your life through, you know, reflection and feeling those reflections. You know, one of the reasons I don't like texting people about coming to the house, and I usually have a tendency of just waiting for them to kind of make their request, is I don't want to create conflict for them. If they have a life, if they have a date, if they want to sit at home and enjoy a peaceful evening with their family, with their child, if they just want to go to sleep the entire night, I don't want to tempt them. You know, if they want to come, they can text. If they don't want to come, that's fine. Um, my father, last week sometimes, he was driving the car, his truck, to the garage, into the garage, and he went to pick up the keys on the passenger side, keys to the car wash, and the car kept moving forward, and then instead of putting his foot on the brake, he put it on, the gas pedal, and the car rammed into the wall. It's a retaining wall in the garage. And so, he had a good whiplashing, and now his body has been aching. And so my mom once in a while calls, and it's difficult for her to keep her composure. And so when it comes to my father's condition, she just breaks down. And she doesn't really know what to do with all the pain that's now inside my father's body. My mom is usually quite strong, but now she's in pain, emotional pain, because my father's about 90. Physical injuries will take a long time to heal, if at all. And so she's worried about his condition, and so she kind of breaks down. And so the last week or so, she hasn't been able to kind of focus on anything else except my father and how he's doing. And that's one of the things that pain creates for you. It removes all distractions. It makes you immensely focused. But I don't think anyone can be focused for too long, because it just takes so much energy. And there comes a point where your capacity just gives, and you can't go beyond it. It's just too much. Your brain needs to shut down. Your emotions need to shut down. Your body needs to shut down. You just need to walk away. I remember Hussein telling me that when he got married at the age of 32, for about 3-4 years, he just walked away from the whole thing, And I guess, when you get married, I suppose it's exciting looking for a house and to furnish the house and going here, going there, and enjoying the basic physical pleasures of life, until you become saturated, and then you go back to what you've always enjoyed. For him, it was reading books and thinking about these ideas and going to gatherings. for the longest time, you're not going to be able to accept the fact that you've chosen one thing over another. You're going to feel guilty. You're going to beat yourself up. And because of the books you've read and because of the ideas you've been exposed to, there's a good chance that you're going to kind of look at your life and the passions you have chosen to pursue. You're going to make yourself feel guilty. You're going to say, well, I want to be like Plato, following the Socrates, or I want to be a Irina pursuing a Bai Sahib, I don't think that's a good comparison. I think you should say this is Ginning, and this is Ginning's life, and this is what she's doing in life. And you should just make peace with that, It's difficult, because here you have been for the past 10 years, for example, you have been reading books and you've been thinking, say, ideas in Daughter of Fire and the journey that Irina goes through, and you want a journey similar to hers. And all of a sudden your life has taken a different path. There is a part of you that has come to the surface, which is you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, I am a woman, and I want to have a companion, and I want to have a family, and I want to have a big house, and I want to have lots of money. This is a new beginning that has come up in the past 4, 5, 6 months, But this new beginning has to now do something with the beginning that has been been on the stage of reflection for the past 10 years. This old beginning is not going to go away easily. This old beginning is going to create a good amount of shame and guilt, a lot of anger, a lot of conflict. And I think as time goes on, and as your life gets more and more busy, hopefully with all the right things, this old beginning that enjoyed very much the reflective path, the spiritual path, will eventually come to realize that it just needs to be put on pause for now. You need to attend to your newfound desire, being with your companion, perhaps thinking about marriage, buying a house, having a family. And then you make peace with it, and then, time will say if you've made the right decision or not. And if you would be interested in the ideas of Seneca, you would come to the conclusion that, you'd be sorry that you've gotten married. You'd be sorry should you not get married. Either way, you'd feel bad. Ginning, I went to bed last night around midnight, and then I woke up at 1, then I woke up at 2, then I woke up at 3, then I woke up at 4, then eventually my alarm went off at 4:30. I got up and left for school. I did some writing, then I went to my class, and I came home, and I spent most of my time with the kids. Then, as I was washing dishes, I realized that I'm a little tired, and my voice right now is a little raspy. It's because of my tiredness. For me, it's been a busy day, and I'm no longer 20 or 30 or 40, which means that the wear and tear on my body and mind sometimes become a little too intense and too deep. I try to fight it sometimes, but for the most part, I'm at a place where I just say, this is my life, you know. Whether it was chosen rightly or wrongly, this is what I have to wrestle with on a daily basis, you know. And knowing what little I know about the amount of energy that I now have inside myself, I have to make sure that I don't push the gas pedal too hard, because you use more fuel by just pressing on the gas pedal. So you really have to be on the middle path for the most part. You know, should the kids do something wrong, you can shout, you can scream, you can be agitated, and I am most of the times, but sometimes you say, okay, do I need to give this too much gas, or should I just go like 10 miles an hour? I mean, these are kids, they're not going to listen. You scream for 5 minutes, you know, they'll be fearful, and they'll be disciplined for the rest of the day, for example. And so you're going to kind of be in this wrestling match for a while, until you just make peace with your life, you know. You know, I've never enjoyed watching these new age teachers on stage, where they spend, you know, about 5, 6, 7 hours of their life every single day on the stage, talking to people. And then they invite people to an ideal life that is just not practical, you know. You know, they assume that every life has so much time where people can sit and reflect and be detached and exercise compassion and forgiveness. And the truth is, most people don't have the luxury, you know. You know, the best you can do, I think, is just pay attention to where you are and just do what you think you need to do.